Oh man, it's Eva time.
Chance.
Once again, they did say that in this batch of episodes, and you could pay us for knowing that if you go to subscribestar.com/KHANTENT and support the wonderful work here we do on the show.
$10.
$10, bonus episodes, advertisement. Hey kids, want to impress your friends and induce sexual arousal in your neighbors? KHANTENT t-shirts!
Wow, I've never been more impressed in my life with anything.
KHANTENT now has official t-shirt merchandise, and you can get yourself some by clicking below the video or in the Teespring link in the description. With designs like the classic KHANTENT logo.
Or this.
I've got a shirt on too.
Or this. KHANTENT!
In these trying times, why not tell the world you'd rather be watching Eurocant from inside your cozy can tent?
They're a great way to support the show and share your KHANTENT pride. So get out there, wear them, and get into KHANTENT. KHANTENT! All right, here we go. Next batch of Eva episodes. Great show. Happy to be thinking about it.
The tone shift in these 5 episodes is miraculous, I would say. When we watch those first 5,
very different vibe. Yeah.
Slow, methodical. Shinji's crying, walking around, running away. But all of these are like badass action show episodes. Right from the jump. Even though like episode 6 is a direct continuation of 5.
It's literally called Rei 2.
Right.
Continuation, yeah.
But whereas Rei 1 was about like Shinji and Rei like getting to know each other, this is just like the fight. It's just one big fight, and it's like the moment when Eva becomes cool, basically.
That's true. You know, I was really thinking watching these episodes. On the one hand, I loved that first batch of episodes so much. Not to shit on it, I think I enjoyed this less because I love that big head thinky stuff so much. When I first watched this, I probably liked this way more, but now my opinions have evolved a little bit.
It's fascinating. This is like, this mid-section of the show is by far the most popular part. Probably because it's the part that feels the most like anime.
Yeah,
that,
right.
People going into an anime expecting like, I want to see giant robots fighting stuff and like fun characters, and like that's what you get here. Which wasn't really the point before and won't really be the point again. If anything, I think this is really to lull you into a false sense of security so it can brutalize you that much more later on. Because, I mean, if it stayed in the tone of those first 5 episodes, it would just be a mopey-ass show, for sure.
Right, and hey, I'm sure there are shows that do mopey just fine. I can't think of any immediately. Technolize, that's a mopey show, right?
Yeah,
to say the least.
Pretty hard to watch one.
So I think the misdirect the whole premise of the show of like teenage boy piloting the robot is sort of a misdirect in of itself. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Eva says no, it wouldn't be that cool in many ways. But you know, this just made me think, this batch of episodes, for the meme that goes around of Shinji's a pussy baby fuckboy who never gets in the robot, we already talked about that he was pretty heroic in that first batch. He is even significantly more heroic in this batch and kind of consistently not only styles on, but like is a rock to Asuka and the rest of the group. He saves her life multiple times in this section.
Yeah, she doesn't like that.
No, she doesn't.
Because as we know, as we will learn, it's interesting how they recontextualize what Shinji did in those first batch of episodes, because we didn't know anything about Nerve or what the hell's going on. But now when Asuka comes in, we get all kinds of world building about the idea that like Eva pilots are normally trained for a long time and like have experience and have to work to get their synchro ratio up. And it seems like Shinji, just because he naturally has such good synchronization with his robot, is why he's able to do it so well. So it's not even really that he's skilled or talented, it's just that he's got the best Eva.
Well, right now,
the best relationship with the Eva.
That's true. The way it's presented, I think that you're kind of led to believe that like Shinji might just be like a super new type hero man, and there may or may not be some recontextualization of that as the series goes on. Let's circle back and touch on the events of the episodes as they go a little bit. So Rei 2 begins. It kind of finishes this emotional arc with Rei. I loved the beginning of these episodes where Rei she's asked in like a scene with Shinji when Shinji's like, I guess after that beating I took at the end of episode 5, like, I guess I'll get back in the robot. He doesn't want to. He's hurt. He's in the hospital. He asks Rei, like, why do you fight? And she says, not like, because I'm told to, because blah, blah, blah. She says, I think I wrote it down verbatim, something like, it's because it's my connection. It's my link to all people.
Yes.
So it's more of this idea, I think, that while we talked a little bit about Rei being a blank slate, not having emotions, I thought about that a little bit more. She does have some emotions, clearly, her connection to Gendo, and this element of, like, maybe this is feeling like she doesn't belong in the world, like she's not like a full person like other people, but she wants to. And that desire element is certainly, we can empathize with that, if nothing else, about her. So that was cool.
I think the idea that I like just that mere concept of like being able to connect to people through the fact that you are defending them, that like there is, you know, yeah, like you said, she has almost no humanity, but fighting for humanity is about the most human thing you could do, you know? So there is I think Shinji maybe recognizes some of that in her, and like, we see Shinji making connections and becoming way more of a person himself, where like, in the first 5 episodes, he never talks back to anybody, he never really gets mad, he just gets like despondent or sad. In this batch, like now that he's hanging out with Toji and Kensuke regularly, he's got a little bit of banter with them. He gets mad at Misato for being like a slob and all that, and like.
And she's rightly happy to see this because, like, oh, thank God, he's becoming a real boy at last.
Yes. So I really enjoy watching that from the angle of like, oh, our little boy's growing up. He's making friends. He's becoming a little bit more of a man, which again is, I think, to lull you into a false sense of security to some degree, because like, how shaky is that? You know, like now that he has it, what if it was snatched away? You know,
indeed.
But that's not what happens in these 5 episodes. It's just mostly building him up, building up these connections, bringing new people into the show. We should really talk about episodes 6 and 7 before the other 3, just because the arrival of Asuka and Kaji changes everything so dramatically.
Right. So let's do that, because after Rei's the more fleshing out of Rei and Shinji, the other element going on in the episode is more Misato stuff, where we're finally seeing her get to be the Chad that she is as the director of operations of NERV, which, again, kind of talking about recontextualization, is an incredibly important role. We see NERV bypassing the UN, the JSDF, like every other agency bows down to NERV's like supreme authority, which I presume is granted by like the UN having like supreme authority to protect the world from the angels. This is like the #1 thing. There's talk in these about how like there were all these other plans. There were some political factions who believed no angels would ever return, despite, you know, the second impact only happening 15 years ago or something. Which it had been like 1,000, well, I don't want to spoil the history too much. It had been a long time before any angel stuff had happened to now. It could have been a very long time again. There was no way to know. In any case, Misato here, having failed to stop Ramiel in episode 5, I just loved the entire sequence of her wheeling and dealing, making phone calls, getting contractors, getting agents to build stuff for her.
This is one of the most unique and realistic ways of showing a character being badass ever. And when I say realistic, I mean like
It's pretty realistic.
The methodologies are realistic. Like the ideas of what, like her going around to these people and saying these things. The fact that they reroute all power from all of Japan into a sniper rifle is not so realistic, but it is awesome.
But I mean, what is realism in a world where giant angels exist and are trying to kill all of humanity or something like that? I think this is a... Would I be willing to go without power for one night in order to help my government fight a giant existential threat? I'd consider it. I'd consider saying yes.
I think this episode is where this show develops big Gainax energy, where it becomes like a little bit of a or die buster type, or even Gurren Lagann-esque, because Hideaki Anno and Gainax hate bureaucracy. They really don't like bureaucracy, and you start to see that in this episode where Misato will do things like have Rei just lift the roof off of a facility so that she can grab the thing that's inside, as opposed to like, I don't know, you know, getting all the proper things done to move it and all that. Like, and in this case, like they're in a rush. They have to defeat this angel within like a certain time frame. There's a ton of shit they have to do.
They've got 9 hours to prepare this rifle from someone else to fight this angel, so they have to do what they have to do.
Yeah, and in this case, there's not as much pushback against them. It's mostly just like us kind of seeing what Misato can do, what NERV is capable of, just the scale of what, like, okay, this enemy seems impenetrable at first. And like, sure, all the angels are like such a massive threat that they should be taken seriously, but so far we've seen Shinji just rip fucking through them.
Right,
so like,
right.
to have a battle where he can't even enter the battlefield because this angel is too powerful, and we have to find a way to deal with that. I just love that it created such a unique circumstance, and that the whole episode feels like an action scene, even though there's literally one moment of action.
That's true.
and-
But see, this is what I always think about. I always say I skip action scenes when they're boring because I don't care. Just tell me who wins. But this is done the way that I love the most, because it's about the thinking and the strategizing and the assembling of the pieces for the one critical moment. Like, did you know that a sniper in real life never acts alone? It's not like they're the one soldier god. There's a sniper and a spotter. A sniper is already inherently a two-man job, if nothing else. So seeing like the entire bureaucracy at work, it's funny. Of course I understand, and there's definitely an implication here that stupid bullshit bureaucracy that gets in the way of heroes who know what needs to be done, that's bad. But considering the end of Gurren Lagann, for example, there is a balance to be found about good people who know that you can't just let like some hero charge and save the day all the time. There has to be some checks and balances, sometimes a little bit, to plan for beyond what just one hero can do. And watching the characters use that and still save the day is nice to see. I think it's cool.
I think episode 7 expands on those themes of the bureaucracy and everything tremendously.
Right.
It's like the main thrust of this is diving into all the different organizations and stuff, particularly, I don't remember what they're called, but there's this other group that's developing their own robot, a big nuclear...
Jet Alone Robot Man.
Jet
yeah.
Alone, which I have to feel like is like a Jet Jaguar reference from Godzilla. Do you know Jet
I don't
Jaguar?
know who that is. I'm a fool.
Put some Jet Jaguar on screen editor. Yeah, so Jet Alone is, it's a robot that is not piloted by a person, but it's got nuclear power inside of it. And
Right.
Nerve is like, this thing's supposed to do hand-to-hand combat, right? It's got a nuclear reactor inside of it. What are you thinking? And they're like, what are you thinking? Your robot can't even be controlled. It just fucking goes berserk. That can't be trusted.
There's a great back and forth debate here about whether EVAs are actually a good solution to this problem. Yes, it's true, they fought a couple of things, but look at the drawbacks. You're depending on children. You are doing massive psychological damage to children and depending on them to not lose it, and they've already lost it multiple times. How long until they completely lose control and it kills everybody? Plus, they can only operate for like 1 minute at a time when they're not connected, whereas Jet Alone can operate for like 150 days, they said. So there are definite negatives to this whole system that the guy rightly brings up, but it's a little bit of hubris.
I would even say it's possible that it's not even that the Jet Alone robot is a bad idea per se, but just that these people can't do this job. That like only Gendo and his team can, because they're psychotic and willing to go that because a lot of this episode is showing the pageantry of the fact that like these guys are having this big party. There's all these like alcohol and tables, all these people invited, and they're like criticizing Nerve for how much it costs.
Right.
Oh, well, your robot cost blah, blah, blah. It could have fed a small nation. And it's like you're all sitting here having like a wine party in this like big facility. And these guys, they're all really pretentious, sexist comments against Ritsuko. They're like, oh, the Ava's like a woman on her period.
Maybe she
It's out
shouldn't
of
be such a
control,
hysterical woman. Consider that, Ritsuko.
So Ritsuko's fucking pissed. But
not to mention the once Jet Alone goes rogue, the numerous bureaucrat
yes,
that is
the scene.
Yeah.
This episode, by the way, is Shin Godzilla. Have you seen Shin Godzilla?
Nope.
Shin Godzilla is basically like if you took this and made a movie out of it.
I was thinking,
it's even
any
got
of
the
these-
same music.
Oh yeah?
It's got Ava music in it.
Sick. Any of these episodes like could be a fully fleshed out movie. Great ideas here. So the point of here basically gets to like, okay, their robot fucks up. It walks. That's kind of cool. It's a giant robot, but it fucks up, and Misato and Shinji need to shut it down themselves.
They don't need to. Misato just tries.
Well,
But
they're-
she didn't actually. It was not part of the plan for her to try to fix this robot.
Right. She's a man of action. She gets
yeah.
in there to do what she thinks needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
But it turns out, actually Ritsuko and Gendo did all this. They were just fucking with these guys. They fucked up the Jet Alone program.
Now see, that's what we need to talk about, because I didn't remember that at all, and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, Jet Alone has gone out of control. Obviously, the implications here are that it's an unstable weaponry, and I was thinking to myself, what are the implications of like, I was thinking that, like, this is a commentary that, like, man's hubris is reaching beyond its grasp and they're making something they can't control. But then I was like, but isn't that exactly what the Evangelions are too? So, like, why is one good and one bad? Okay, maybe there's some complexity there, whatever. It's interesting to think about these things. But then at the end, it's quite clearly shown this was actual real sabotage. This plan may have in fact worked, but clearly it's implied to be Gendo at least. He fucked up the project, obviously because he wants his Eva plan to proceed, not this competing one.
He wants anybody taking money away from him to fuck off.
So, knowing what we know now, this could be one of two things. One, he thinks that like, he legitimately believes in the Eva project and he thinks competitors are just a waste of time and energy. We know that Jet alone can't generate an AT field yet. They're like, we'll figure it out one of these days. They probably won't overcome that particular one. Or he's got an ulterior motive and something shady's going on behind the scenes.
A lot shady's going on behind the scenes, I think. But yeah, like, it definitely, because of the fact that Gendo he's undercutting Seele even, who are his bosses, like, he's got to keep cards at the chest from everybody.
Right.
There's a scene in episode 10, I think, where, like, they're deciding he wants to go in pursuit of an angel, and Seele guys are like, it's too dangerous, a failure won't be tolerated. And he's like, failure would mean we all die. Like, you guys keep it's just like this idea that people always have in their heads, like, the idea of the return to normalcy that supposedly would come, that in Gendo's mind is like, that's not a thing anymore. Like, we're just in this. Like, the world, functionally, the world's already over. Logically, like, we have already lost if we're following logic, but we're not following logic. We're just fucking powering through, like, anytime we have to come up with a solution, they get really creative. Again, episode 6 with the rerouting all power in Japan to fire a gun. There's so many moments where Nerve should lose. I think we're going to get to, in a couple episodes from now, one of those where they actually say, like, statistically, the probability is 0.0001.
One of those
like
already... the shutdown of Jet alone chance was like 0.00 whatever it was, so something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And in episode 7, by the way, we finally get a little talk about what the second impact was. We get more details. It was an angel awakening a long time ago, and they're like, okay, here's the goal. It melted Antarctica. It melted Antarctica, that flooded the world, it caused all kinds of fucked up things and wars and all kinds of stuff. And the goal of Nerve is to prevent the third impact. So, okay, we know what the consequences can be when these things happen. It makes me wonder, like, pragmatically, what's the difference between an angel showing up and an impact? Like, how do you make sure that only one happens as opposed, like, angels keep appearing now. How are they making, like, a little bit later, like, they find a sleeping angel, episode 9 or 10 or whatever it is, and they're like, oh, we can't let this turn into an impact. Why didn't the other angels waking up turn into an impact, and how could this one? I don't understand the logistics of that exactly. Doesn't really matter. Okay, but at least we understand the threat that's going on. And by the way, before we continue too much, I also want to say, great shots, loving just the cinematic angles. The cinematography is incredible.
Unfortunately, this is stretching it for some reason.
I can't fix this fucking TV.
It's not our fault. 4-3 is glorious. We all agree.
It is. And at the end of episode 6, I just wanted to talk more a little bit about Rei and her struggle
ass.
here. Yep, she's got an ass. And the end of episode 6, the finale scene there, I mean, it's very famous, where in an exact, after the sniping scene, in an exact mirror to Gendo saving Rei from the test ejection thing that went bad, Shinji, again, going back to this, like, heroic Shinji thing, he does just the exact same thing Gendo did, not because he's trying to be like his dad, because he's just the kind of guy who really cares about someone he knows dying and stuff. And when he burns his hands just like Gendo and pulls her out of there, she still is in, like, her emotionally, disconnected state. And she's like, what should I do? And he says the famous line, you should try smiling. And then she does it. And we get the great smile moment. She's trying, man.
When you smile.
She's trying.
It is his first ever Chad/simp moment.
Yeah.
He's somewhere on the spectrum.
He is crying at the moment.
Yeah, he is literally weeping and asking a girl to smile for him.
But again, 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Doing his best out there, being a hero. So again, one of the many ways.
And he gets the smile. How cute is that?
I think there's an element. This isn't meant to be a criticism, but people like to be told what to do a little bit. You're not doing anyone harm if you say, like, hey, you seem down. Like, you don't know what to do right now? Try smiling. He gives her the gift of guidance on what it's like to be human a little bit there, and I think she appreciates it genuinely, so.
I think so too.
That's a nice moment.
Yeah, that basically covers episodes 6 and 7.
Yep.
They're both fun. Misato is awesome. Then we get Asuka strikes!
What have you got her? Oh, there. Oh, wait. We have to talk about the coffee cup moment.
Yes.
Just, we get more, like, backstory into Misato and Shinji's life before we get to Asuka stuff, where he's just so disappointed in her existence as a slob.
This is exactly what I was talking about, that he's a person now. Like, he couldn't
Yeah,
have made
yeah.
a face like this in those first 5 episodes.
She wakes up, cracks a beer first thing in the morning. You know, that seems like a healthy way to live. And you know, his friends just think she's like a perfect woman. But at the this is such an anime moment at the end of episode 7. Shinji's like, oh, she's so messy, she's so silly and dirty, or maybe it was episode 6, whatever.
That's 7.
And they're like, but Shinji, don't you know? You're seeing the real Misato. That's the real person, not just the makeup and the clothes and the outside stuff. And when she shows up to the school, all the girls are jealous and pissed off that all the boys love Misato so much. Hilarious, great characterization. Misato has really become a great character. Anyway, it's time for Asuka. She's here.
Yeah,
She's
so
doing it.
I once had a video called Asuka Changes Everything in Evangelion. And it's just because, you know, what this show is kind of about is communication, human connections, what, you know, how people affect each other in this crazy-ass scenario. But Asuka's personality is just so extreme and so much more explosive and commanding than anybody in the show so far that, like, just putting her in the show makes it the Asuka show. Like,
You know,
it can't be helped.
Well, I was like, when Asuka showed up, I was like, this is everyone when Asuka showed up. Boom, finally! She's here. We get to look at her now. You know what? When I remember it's been like decades since I first watched Eva. And I remember, it was the English dub, of course, on Toonami or whatever, and I thought Asuka was really annoying. I find her way less annoying now that I'm older. Maybe it's because it's in Japanese.
I guarantee you the dub is some part of that.
Sure.
Because I had also thought Asuka was just like a cunt the first time I watched the show.
Yeah.
But it's also partly that, you know, I mean, when I was Shinji's age when I first watched this, I felt like Shinji. So Asuka's aggression was as aggressive to me as it was to Shinji. It was just like, why are you like this? And like, watching it now, I'm like, no, she should be like this. Shinji's wrong. He's the, like, she is actually
Nobody's wrong, but they're different
Maybe
kinds
they're not
of
wrong,
people.
but like her approach to this whole scenario, it's like she is no less forced into this than anybody else is, but she's chosen to take pride in it and to try her best. She's like, and you know, a big part of it is just her personality. Is she's a type A, very intelligent, multilingual. At 14, like
college
star pilot.
graduate at 14.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's like, her mentality has always just been like, I have to do my best. I have to. Shinji does not have that mentality. He's like, I'll do my best because I've been convinced to. And so like, you know, in many ways, Asuka's more respectable, but because of the fact that she just like, she can't see anybody doing anything differently as like being correct. She's like, no, I'm the only one doing it right. You are all fucking up. And I don't understand why the adults around me aren't saying anything. You know, like she's willing to just accost Shinji in a way that Misato wouldn't because she knows that that's not going to help.
Right. That's the thing. Asuka does come across as very grating against Shinji's way of doing things. And to be fair, Shinji is fairly pathetic in the way that he just follows orders a lot of the time. You know, he's growing past that a little bit, but he absolutely still has that
I believe there's a part where
personality.
she says to him, nothing is more pathetic than a domesticated man.
Right, yes. So, I mean, yeah, that this is reflected in her personality, and the way this is recontextualized in episode 9 was great. But so for a first episode here, immediately, we talked about this, you know, at the start of the video, but when she hears about Shinji's, like, sync rate, that's, like, the highest anyone's ever achieved, 40% or whatever it was, she's like, what? And that gives her a reason to be interested in Shinji, and once they meet, they spend most of the episode, she spends most of the episode, pulling him along. Like, there's a thing, in real life, you know, guys, teenage boys don't find a girl who, like, involves themselves in her life. So there's a little bit of like, oh yes, there's a girl who's like choosing to be around me in this case so that she can like show him that she's better than him and that his stats don't mean anything.
You know, I don't even know if her goal is to show that she's better than him. I think she wants him to be better than her actually.
From the start?
I think it's like maybe not from the very start, but definitely by episode 10, that's what she's trying to do, is like get him to like, hey, if you're supposed to be so like this badass pilot, why aren't you acting like it, like I am?
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And she just can't get that. But like,
You know, a lot of the time, people want others to act in accordance with their worldview, just so it reinforces the way they view things. And I think Asuka definitely is one of these people.
and I think a huge part of the theming around Asuka is that this bitch horny as fuck.
She is a very sexual being for a 14-year-old.
Yes, she's, you know, as other characters say, she is like more developed than most. Like when she shows up
That's like
in
her
school,
first line. I'm really filling out in all the right places, aren't I, boys?
Right.
Oh boy.
She's maybe overstating it a bit. These are mosquito bites.
Yeah.
But
she's 14 though.
right. Well, but the other kids in class, when they see her, are like, "Oh, she seems more mature somehow.
Right.
Like it must be them Germans.
Well,
must
maybe
just
it's the
grow up
college
quick."
degree and
Right.
the life or death stakes she faces frequently.
Right.
You know, this is another interesting point. Now that I'm older, I remember thinking of Asuka more as like a peer when I was young. Looking at her behavior now, it is so clearly childish. I'm like, yeah, this is what a child would do. I am Kaji now, looking at her, being like, your attempts at impressing me do nothing. It's cool that you have a degree, but beyond that, you know.
And like Kaji is clearly her vision of like what like a man should be.
Yeah.
She thinks this guy is like, he's cool, he's handsome, he's suave.
Sounds familiar.
And yeah, she really wants to fuck Kaji. He's just like, you're a kid. What are you talking about? Like, at one point she makes him come with her to buy a swimsuit. Or he tricks her into going to the swimsuit section and has like a two-piece, and he's like, isn't that a little risque for a middle schooler? And she's like, nobody cares these days.
Her whole thing, she wants to be more mature. She's desperate to be an adult. She's definitely that archetype of character.
And so with Kaji just giving her no rope, she starts going after Shinji.
Right.
But Shinji is the least fuckable man in the world. So like a significant amount of these episodes to me, especially 10, is her trying to convince Shinji to be fuckable so she can fuck.
You know, they say, I think it's called the general romantic principle of the 90-10 rule. When you're trying to get a girl, you go 90% of the way, you make her come the last 10, and that's when you've sealed the deal. But he is willing to go 0% of the way and let her, or anyone, do anything they want to him all the time. So it's not particularly attractive or working. Right. But he is a fucking high-level EVA pilot, so there's something cool about that, which is why he's attracted, or he's got something going on for Asuka.
There's a moment, I think, where she comes up to him and literally is like, don't my boobs look great in this swimsuit? And he's just like, yeah, whatever. And she says something under her breath like, you fucking virgin, and walks away.
He is obviously being like baited by her constantly. She keeps poking
He doesn't
at
get
him.
it though. He has not noticed in one single way yet. I
don't think that's true at all, because he blushes all the time.
Yeah, but I don't think he's blushing because he thinks that she likes him. I think he's just blushing because
he wants a female body to fuck, as every young boy does. I mean, I agree. Yeah,
it's this funny thing where like he's not picking up the signals because she's aggressive. I get this because again, I grew up like Shinji, so like if somebody was coming on to me the way Asuka was coming on to me, I would have thought she just hated me. Like she's yelling at you all the time, she's constantly berating you. Like I don't think he can understand that kind of nuance.
He's not ready for romance in any capacity. No. He's a fucking wet blanket.
He's barely ready for life in any capacity.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen with Asuka. So, I mean, first of all, the cool fight happens, and we get some of the coolest fucking Eva animation. Oh my God, this fight. The weights of the jumping from shit. This scene is etched into my fucking mind from when I was young.
Same.
The idea of a Eva that cannot survive underwater, having to the setting of this armada where the episode takes place, cool, seems arbitrary until we get to the fight where she has to jump from ship to ship. We see the damage being done, the tilting, the planes falling off the side. Just some of the coolest choreography and setting I've ever seen in a fucking show.
Up to this point, the fights were all horror scenes. Like, it was screaming, awful, fucking paranoia. Asuka, like, poses in a cape.
Oh, it looks so cool.
Fluttering in the breeze.
I got big Getter Robo vibes from that. It looked very familiar.
And we've got this beautiful, like, daytime, bright color palette, which, you know, again, even there was a fight during the day where in episode 3, but it was much more muted. And like, this is going out of its way to be fun. this is fun now. Asuka's here. She's having fun.
The Angel itself also, well, of course, it destroys several ships. It feels more like done for fun, as you were saying, like a more arbitrary threat. Yeah, they have to sink tankers and do this whole cool plot, but you don't really feel too threatened by it. It's a bit of a goofy fish angel as opposed to the other ones.
Yeah, and just the sheer confidence that Asuka's displaying, and the fact that there's comedy throughout the fight, where so Shinji has to put on one of Asuka's plug suits, and he spends the whole time like holding his crotch, trying not to,
embarrassed.
To have a
As
bulge.
soon as Asuka launches, Misato's like, "Nice, Asuka!" As the captain's like freaking out because she wasn't supposed to do that.
There's an incredible moment where she accosts him for thinking in Japanese.
Oh, right.
Apparently the Eva connects to your actual thoughts, and you have to have it in certain language modes. So since she's normally thinking in German, it's in German, but then she has to switch it to Japanese.
By the way, if I thought when I was young that the English voice actor sounded retarded speaking in German, just wait till you hear Asuka's Japanese actor speak in German.
Well, and for the record, the English dub actress of Asuka in the original does speak German. She is fluent.
Oops.
So
I don't remember it at all. Please forgive me.
Jess used to bring this up all the time as a staunch
okay.
defender of the Eva dub. She could speak German, which was his defense of the dub.
I'm really trying to criticize the Japanese voice actor because she sounded like shit.
Yeah, no.
Japanese and like almost any other language don't blend very well because it's such a rigid form-fitting language. Anyway, that was great. This idea that they sync to your brain. We're learning more about like how the Eva operates and how it connects like to your actual thoughts and emotion, the synchronization rate. So we're getting less away from just like you're in a Gundam, you move the thing to move the arm. It's a weird miasmatic connection that they've got going on here, which is fascinating.
And also through the fight, we've got like the Admiral complaining about having to deal with children the whole time. You've got Kensuke like fumbling trying to change tapes in his recorder and stuff.
Right.
Just happening in the background. Just so much fun. Again, it's so different from the earlier episodes, and I don't even think that you would feel it as strongly on a first pass through the show because it's kind of like, okay, well, we just met a new character, whatever. Like, it's only really when I'm thinking about, you know, how nothing up to this point was fun. And then now it is. Maybe you could consider Misato's actions in episode 6 and 7 because she's smiling and she's got that kind of like arms crossed, badass, like no type thing going on. But you know, with Asuka, it's a whole other level of just like dominating the whole screen presence. I mean, episode 9 is all fun, all funny, all hilarious. It's the dance like you want to win, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Shinji and Asuka can't synchronize very well in their fighting. They keep tripping over each other's Evas and shit while they're trying to fight these angels. So they have to spend the whole episode learning to work in sync. And it's interesting that like they do manage to learn to work in sync, but they still can't bridge the communication gap between them, or the understanding gap, just because like they just hate the core values of one another so much, I guess.
The progression of that was great. One last element just about episode 8 was that it ends with Kaji appearing in front of Gendo, giving him a little embryo angel, they say, that Gendo says, this is the first human being. What the fuck does that mean? Okay, guess we'll find out about that later.
Says this is Adam.
Right, Adam, that's right. Okay, so future plot to be discussed further. So right, on episode 9, this inability to sync together that Asuka and Shinji has, first of all, I thought this was great, because I'd been thinking back, like, I know Asuka moves in with them eventually. Why was that? That didn't seem necessary. This is the reason, so that they will live together and think together, and I believe this just pervades for the most of the rest of the series or something.
And so we can see Asuka in booty shorts all the time.
But what I love was how we get to a point of like recontextualizing Asuka. This is kind of the first more humanizing, vulnerable moment for her, which is when they're having trouble syncing, they're like, hey Rei, swap in for Asuka, let's see how you do. And Rei like performs perfectly with Shinji. They have no issues. Doing a great job, which makes me wonder, frankly, why they didn't just use Rei. Maybe because Unit 1 was still being repaired. It doesn't matter, whatever. And I loved Unit 0. I think she's just like, I'll pilot Unit 2, which might not work as well. Anyway, so it's Asuka's reaction to that was like my favorite moment of Asuka's in these episodes, where she just shuts down. She runs away and is freaking out, and she tells Shinji, like, I have nothing in my life except piloting an Eva. It's what gives me purpose. And this is where I was thinking that, like, you know, we said before, like, Rei pilots an Eva because it's her connection to humanity. And that made me think, like, is that so different from Shinji? Why is Shinji piloting an Eva?
That is ultimately why he's here now, I would say.
Yeah, and Asuka, too, is kind of explaining it's a similar reason.
If anything, I would say that Rei saying that to him is probably what makes him not resist anymore. Because from that episode on, we have no problem with Shinji getting in the robot. This has not been a thing.
I would not get in that fucking death capsule because it's too small, it's too scary. I would shit myself. I don't like to be in enclosed spaces like that if I can help it. So just that alone of being in the capsule makes me already kind of tense up and get nervous. It's flooded with fucking fluid that fills your lungs and shit. Jesus Christ. But on a larger level, this motivation they have, is that even so different from how every human being operates on the entire fucking planet? Why do we do what we do? To earn what we need to live, and then to like have a purpose and exist and be connected to our fellow man.
Gotta find my purpose.
Asuka showing her vulnerable side here after like 2 episodes of being a hard-ass bitch most of the episodes. It's like, oh, now I'm starting to get that she's not just motivated by I'm specifically better than everyone. I'm blah, blah, blah doing this. It's that, oh, she has an idea of herself that she has to like justify every day. And which kind of made, and we'll learn more about her backstory in the future, but it made me wonder that like, we talked about being impressed by her getting her college degree. Maybe she felt like she was forced to. And it's not even that she is like necessarily so much better. It's that she had this something in her forcing her to self-define herself as good at stuff so that she could like justify continuing to live. You know, when there's tragedy in her life or whatever. So thinking about her that way was very cool, which culminates in this moment at the end of episode 9, where like it's the sleeping kiss scene.
Yes.
First of all, I love that there's that little moment. This is how you know it's written by a real dude, by a real ninja, a real Nate head, who when Asuka just gets up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or whatever, Shinji is awake listening to that tape he always listens to. And when she walks out, he shuts it off and closes his eyes. I do that. I pretend to be asleep sometimes when I don't want to have to see people walking by or something. So that was just an extra little bit of writing, like when Toji hung up the phone at the end of that other episode.
I choose to believe, even though I know it's not true, that Shinji is listening to The Cure's Disintegration.
It's like, it's Beethoven or something, right? If I remember correctly.
Well, when he was on the train, it just was like some pop music.
So it's not like one thing he necessarily listens to all the time. Does it change?
I'm not sure.
I was wondering about that.
I just know in episode 4, it was like a of the era pop song, basically.
Okay. Anyone in the comments would be interested to know if anyone knows more about this. We'll talk more about it in the future when he listens to more stuff, I'm sure. So of course, on our way back, Asuka, sleepwalking or whatever, like falls into Shinji's bed. Haha, what a wacky situation that is. Shinji looking down her shirt, she's got boobs. Whoa, oh my God. And you know, she's close to him and he's thinking about, ooh, maybe I'll give her a little smooch while she's sleeping. Hey, wouldn't that be cute? And he's thinking about doing it, but then she says like, Mama, and she's like crying. And we cut to him like away from her in the bed, and he's thinking like, you're more of a child than I am even.
Boner fully gone.
Indeed.
And yeah, that's a really fun, I like that he's like, oh, you're so childish, after he was about to try to kiss her in her sleep. Which is about as childish a thing as he probably could be doing.
I mean, it is. To be fair, she got in his bed. So, I mean, what did you want, that's girl? True. Come on. I was wondering, literally, why did Asuka get into his bed? Is this some sort of sleepwalking control?
I always just kind of taken it as a mistake. Like, she's just so tired she didn't realize, you know?
That would make sense. And just the way that this reinforces her vulnerability, that like she's got some other issues going on clearly that's deep in the old noggin somewhere. So looking forward to seeing more about that and her vulnerabilities as a person.
Even though Shinji fell on Rei's tits and everything and had a whole time with her, there was never an impression really that he like wanted to have sex with Rei or that like he was pursuing her romantically.
No more than like any normal physical attraction kind of thing. Yeah,
he was just kind of like curious about her because of his dad's interaction and like comes to appreciate her as of the end of episode 6. But they're just friends. And like when Asuka shows up, I don't think he's thinking of her as like potential romantic partner necessarily, but something about that aggressiveness, the fact that she like, not just that she will deal with him, but that she goes out of her way to deal with him.
Yeah.
And even if it's not positive, it's like he's just getting so much attention from her.
Right,
That I
right.
think it just makes him think way more about those kinds of things. You know?
It's only natural. It's like the Helga angle from Hey Arnold. She just keeps inserting herself in his life over and over for various reasons. So it's only natural when you're a kid like that to think about it.
Which brings us to episode 10 and thermal expansion.
Indeed.
This whole episode's a boner joke.
Yeah, I guess it is.
It's all just build up to thermal expansion.
What a retarded... I didn't even understand how this applied to the end. Okay, so the general plot is all the kids are going to Okinawa on a trip. Our kids don't get to go because they're EVA pilots and they're important and they matter. Then there's a fight in a volcano. Oh my God, there's an embryo of an angel in a volcano. Asuka put on this big fat suit and go down there and find it. They try to capture it before it expands. They fail. Third impact luckily doesn't happen. Isn't that convenient for us? And she has to fight it, and she does with Shinji's help and wins. Okay, but during the fight, there's like a thing that like, oh, it's too hard for me to stab with a progressive knife, so I will, using the stuff that referenced earlier about how my boobs get bigger when they get warmer and smaller when they're cold or whatever, Shinji, aren't you attracted to me? She takes one of the cooling tubes and like sticks it in its mouth. Wouldn't that make it smaller and harder? How does that work to defeat it? I don't get it.
Maybe the cooling liquid like rapidly turning to gas in the flames is what does it. Like
Okay, but why do they specifically say thermal expansion? Like that's the thing that beats it.
this episode is kind of infamous. It's it was sort of a meme among Eva fans for a long time for being just like the most pointless episode.
Sure.
Because legitimately, I don't think there's much to it beyond a boner joke. Like we kind of in episode 9 we saw Shinji try to kiss Asuka. This one is more, I think, trying to show us that Asuka really is trying to make Shinji a boyfriend material, and he
Something
just
like that, yeah.
can't because he's in fucking impassable wall. But by the end of the episode, when Asuka and Misato are on the other side of the hot springs,
Right.
and Shinji's overhearing them, and he pops a boner that
He sure does.
Pen notices.
He sure does.
And I guess it's just the whole thing is just to be like, hey, these kids are regular people now. Like Shinji sure is a boy now. I didn't get much else out of this one. Any of the times I've seen it. Not that I dislike it. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably my least favorite episodes, the ones we saw, just because it lacked the most, I don't know, thematic resonance or whatever. But at the end, there is just another one of these moments where Asuka's gonna like fall and die in lava. So, already talking about not liking being stuck in a capsule, in a fucking big robot. The idea of falling infinitely into lava just terrifies me to my core. You're gonna die, trapped in a little pod. Oh God, just fucking kill me right now. I hope they give them cyanide pills in case something goes wrong in those Evas. Anyway, the fact that she breaks her thing and is gonna fall and probably die, but Shinji dives in and saves her at the last moment. Just another one of these heroic moments that Shinji does. I mean, as far as we know, nobody like ordered him to do it. He acted because he was like, I have the power to save her. I'm gonna do that now and, do that. Shinji is acting like a hero, even if he's not emotionally very well developed. For obvious reasons, he's young, he's inexperienced, he'll get it as he gets older. So just more of Shinji looking like a capable hero, so I'm hoping that he gets treated more as such as things go along, because I don't really remember anything of what happens after this section. So I'm looking forward to see where we go from here.
Yeah, there's gonna be like 3 or 4 more of this sort of tone. But yeah, like, I love the way that the show is constantly fucking with Asuka and her pride, because like, she really cares about appearances. She wants to look cool. She wants to be treated like she is badass. And so when she has to do things like wear a matching outfit with Shinji and dance, or wear a big Fat Albert suit, she's really not happy about it. And like,
by the way, that Fat Albert suit definitely did nothing. Because why would you protect your body from temperature and not your head, like, whatsoever? It was just a joke. It was just a joke.
I really think this whole episode is like, it's the vacation episode. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I love that idea that, like, obviously if Asuka really was, like, if she was mature, if she was as much of a badass as she thinks she is, she wouldn't care about these things. She would just be like, okay, I got to do what I got to do. That's what heroes do.
You'd be like Misato, who just does her job and has some personal issues. We see her and Kaiji have like some love backstory here and there that's happening. That's all fine. But she's a slob at home where she can be a slob.
Which Asuka would not do.
No,
You
no.
get the sense she would never allow herself to slip for a second because her baseline is so low. Like, if she's not impressing herself at all times, then she just wants to die, it seems like. So,
Right,
that undercurrent of, like, really hard depression, I think, is what makes it so every time she's even slighted a little bit, it's like a big deal to her.
Like we saw in episode 9, she puts on a brave face, but when her faith in herself is seriously challenged, she can like collapse immediately. So that's an unstable element in the same way that Shinji is. Rei is the rock. She's not going anywhere. She's dead on doing her duty all the time.
And I'm glad you reminded me of Kaji and Misato as well, because, so, a big thing that pumps up the sexual undercurrent of Shinji and Asuka, who aren't, going to do anything because they're dumb kids.
Yeah.
Kaji is just like making out with Misato in the elevators,
And
like
she
grabbing
loves
on
it,
her,
mate.
fucking she cannot help herself.
He's an attractive man.
He's exploding with testosterone. This guy.
And I think this is what you're gonna say, but like, it's really good that we have that to be like, this is what Shinji and Asuka like theoretically could be like actually sexually mature adults if they wanted to be, and whatever, they develop more and stuff. But they are not like that at all. They are children and they don't know what they're doing.
But as we will explore, Kaji and Misato's sexual relationship isn't necessarily healthy either.
No,
It's got its ups and downs, and ultimately their relationship is good for both of them, like in the whole of the show, I think. But it has always been troubled, and it's obvious that when they were younger, it was much more like they probably both were just cheating on each other and doing all kinds of shit, going by the way they talk about it.
Based on the way Kaiji like flirts with Ritsuko and like other
Yeah.
people, yeah, it seems that
Well,
way.
and like when we eventually learn more about Misato, we will learn that she was a bit of a hoe when she was younger. So,
Oh, I see.
or something to that effect. She wanted to piss off her dad. So
Okay.
yeah.
By the way, just about their backstories, there's another bit of lore drop that we know that like 15 years ago, the second impact happened. We don't know where everybody was, but Kaji has a line where I think he's talking with Asuka. Asuka's like, oh man, I don't get to go on my school trip, or I think this is when she still wants to go, so I got a bathing suit for it. What did you do for your school trip, Kaji? And he's like, we didn't have a school trip. The second impact just happened. Right. And that's like, oh wow, look at, we're getting character emotional stakes as to historical events. Right. I like this. This is good.
I also, it's interesting and obviously deliberate that all of these kids were born after Second Impact.
Right.
They're all 14. It happened 15 years ago. All of the adults experienced Second Impact. So, there's a good reason for them all to be, like, substantially more hard-ass and to kind of, like, Shinji and Asuka, as much as they are in a shit position, have grown up entitled, comparatively, because they did not grow up in the... I mean, they did grow up in the immediate post-apocalypse, but they never experienced anything before that. They didn't have the whole world ripped out from under them, the way that these people did. So, like, I just think a lot of that aggravation that the older characters have towards the younger ones is, like, because they've been through so much, they would know how to deal with things. And, like, it's hard for them to put themselves in the headspace of these kids who haven't.
There's that old man, the second in command of Nerve, Fuji, whatever his name is,
Fujimoto.
Who when Asuka and Shinji are embarrassing him, he's like, "You're embarrassing us on like the worldwide stage. You're fucking up. You're making Nerve look bad." And this is one of their reasons, like, "Oh, we can't let the commander be mad or something. We got to do it right." So that's probably feeding into that. The whole, and again, like politically, it's kind of hard to imagine like all of Japan doing something together, like all of the world via the UN, like combining to fight something. But the second impact happened. They have serious reason to unite against this threat to every single man, woman, and child.
Not to mention, like, 70% of everyone was dead.
Yeah,
so
something like that.
They probably didn't have a lot of military strength in any particular place.
Yep. They talk about that briefly. They mentioned, like, the U.S. and how the U.S., like, isn't doing it. I forget exactly what it was, but there's some mention of like the other countries around the world. Not to mention we see Seele or whatever gathered around the table. I'm wondering like, who are all these men? Where are they from, each of them? I want to know. They all have a different color. I like that. That looks cool. We'll find out more in the future, I guess. That's where we leave it.
I can't think of anything more to say other than you should go to subscribestar.com/KHANTEHNT and give us $10 to get access to our bonus episodes that come out every month. You get instant access to all the ones that are out.
It's like 9, 6, 8, 7, some number
There's
of
a
them
bunch.
exist already, including Pat Labor, some Mamoru Oshii stuff, Vampire Wars, etc., etc.
Saw on Subscribestar that it said we had over 100 posts, which means there's well over 100 episodes of KHANTENT.
Yep, that's right.
That sounds like it's worth supporting to me.
Got to agree there.
If you gave us $10, that's $1 per every 10 episodes of KHANTENT you've gotten to see so far. So.
Seems worth it to me. We've also got a Discord and a Twitter that you can follow and talk to people on and all that fun stuff. And if you're a very special boy, you might appear right here as a KHANTENT clip.